The effect of fiber on depression. I chose to do this topic because depression is very prevalent in the US and in the UMass community, and due to the effects of COVID, the rate of depression has grown. Depression affects both mental and physical health. Many different factors can contribute to the onset of depression. However, I chose to focus on significant life changes such as job loss and diet. COVID-19 had a very large impact on the labor market, as seen in the bottom right figure. The unemployment rate in the US increased by a little over 10% in 1 month, which is equivalent to about 20.5 million people. With all of these people losing their incomes, many Americans could no longer afford luxuries they used to be able to. Therefore, the rate of depression and anxiety increased, as the figure on the right shows. Due to COVID-19 causing job losses, a lot of people struggled to afford the groceries they would usually purchase, which could lead to deficiencies in certain nutrients. I believe that not only did job loss lead to depression, but since these individuals could no longer afford the nutrient-dense products that they used to be able to purchase, they may not have been getting the proper nutrients as well. And this could lead to a positive feedback loop, leading to increased depressive symptoms. Therefore, I believe that if we were to undergo another pandemic due to a new variant, perhaps an emphasis on nutrition could decrease rates of depression. In this video, I will investigate whether or not that is true. The question I asked in my research was, will increasing the amount of dietary fiber consumed in a depressed individual's diet increase their mood and/or potentially cure depression? I chose to investigate the effects of dietary fiber because I know fiber is very beneficial for the gut microbiota. The gut microbiota found in the large intestine leads to production of certain neurotransmitters and sends them to the nervous system through the gut-brain axis. The bacteria in the large intestine can digest certain nutrients that cannot be digested by our stomach or small intestine. Fiber has beta-glycosidic linkages that cannot be broken down by the proteins that break down other carbohydrates we ingest. The microbiome, however, can benefit from these undigestible carbohydrates depending on which type of fiber it is. It is important to note that there are two different types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. Soluble fiber can be found in apples, oats, beans, and seaweed. Overall, soluble fiber is found in a lot of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Soluble fiber can dissolve in water, and since it is not digested by the stomach or small intestine, it serves as food for the bacteria found in the microbiome of the large intestine. By consuming more soluble fiber, we are giving the microbiome more food that they can use to power chemical reactions. Chemical reactions in the microbiome can synthesize the necessary precursors for neurotransmitters like serotonin. Soluble fiber also has a lot of general health benefits, such as lowering the risk of cardiovascular disease or CVD. Soluble fiber can lower cholesterol by binding to bile and therefore causing the bile to be excreted with feces through the rectum. In doing this, less bile would be recycled back to the liver. When an insufficient amount of bile is recycled in the body, the liver needs to synthesize more. The liver creates more bile by breaking down its cholesterol storage. Therefore, this lowers cholesterol and decreases an individual's risk of CVD. Insoluble fiber can be found in wheat bran, rye bran, whole grain cereals, broccoli, and celery. Similar to soluble fiber, insoluble fiber is found mostly in fruits, vegetables, and whole grain foods. Insoluble fiber also cannot be broken down by the stomach or small intestine. However, insoluble fiber cannot dissolve in water, and it also cannot be broken down by the microbiome. Therefore, since insoluble fiber cannot be broken down, It will help decrease constipation since it causes an increase in the bulk of the stool. As the stool increases in size, it signals the body to increase peristalsis, which eventually leads to its excretion. This benefits the microbiota since it increases the rate of excretion, and therefore bacteria waste less time trying to ferment indigestible foods and can focus on breaking down compounds that they can use for energy. Now that we've given an overview of what fiber is, let's look at what depression is. Depression is identified as a mental illness in which an individual experiences feelings of sadness, uselessness, helplessness, and loss of interest. These negative feelings are caused by neurotransmitter dysfunctions in the brain. The neurotransmitters scientists have noticed the highest impact on mood changes that lead to depression include serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. Scientists are not exactly sure of what causes these dysfunctions or how the levels of these neurotransmitters lead to depression. However, it is widely believed that a lack of serotonin is one of the main causes of depression. Immune system imbalances and errors in the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis also contribute to the development of depression. However, in this video, I will strictly be focusing on the role of the microbiota in the gut-brain axis in depression. Fiber is correlated with depression due to the interaction between the microbiome and the nervous system, also known as the gut-brain axis, or GBA. What we eat can lead to differences in how we think and act due to certain neurotransmitters such as dopamine, tryptophan, and serotonin being regulated by the microbiome. To investigate how an increase in fiber would affect depressive symptoms, I did some research. In a scientific article called The Intervention of Unique Plant Polysaccharides, Dietary Fiber on Depression from the Gut-Brain Axis, multiple different studies were summarized and analyzed to show how the gut microbiome and the gut-brain axis impacted the onset and progression of depression. Scientists concluded that all studies showed individuals with depleted or malnourished microbiomes displayed more symptoms of depression than those who had flourishing and diverse and healthy microbiomes. Not only did individuals with malnourished microbiomes show more symptoms, but the symptoms that they did report tended to be more severe than individuals who had diverse, healthy microbiomes. Although it is not completely understood how the gut microbiota can lead to depression, there are many different pathways that have been observed and continue to be investigated. It's been hypothesized that a lack of a healthy microbiome could lead to a decrease in the synthesis of tryptophan, a vital precursor for the synthesis of serotonin. The role of short-chain fatty acids and their role in producing 5-HT, a precursor for mature serotonin, is also being investigated. Overall, this study reports that there are various mechanisms in which the microbiota affect the nervous system, and therefore, by increasing fiber and properly nourishing our gut bacteria, we can prevent malfunctions in the production of serotonin. In another article, scientists looked at a cross-sectional study which observed the depressive symptoms of 1,977 employees aged between 19 and 69. I chose this article because it includes a much larger and broader age group and a more diverse population. The results showed an inverse relationship between how much fiber was consumed compared to depressive symptoms. Therefore, the more fiber consumed, the less depressive symptoms were reported, and vice versa. The article focused on whether or not insoluble or soluble fiber would have greater effects, and they concluded that there was no noticeable difference between whether soluble or insoluble intake had a greater correlation with the reduction of depressive symptoms. What scientists took away from this study was that there was no advantage to increasing intake specifically of soluble or insoluble fiber. However, there was a clear advantage to increasing the intake of fiber overall, So therefore, by intaking both insoluble and soluble fiber, depressive symptoms lessened. In conclusion, the biological mechanism as to how fiber and the microbiome impacts the synthesis of serotonin is not completely understood. Scientists are unsure exactly how the consumption of fiber correlates with decreases in depressive symptoms. However, there are many different mechanisms and explanations that make sense. Whether short-chain fatty acids or the synthesis of precursors to serotonin or overall better health contributes most to symptoms of depression, it can be concluded that fiber is good for decreasing symptoms of depression overall. I would like to finish by emphasizing the main point taken away from all the research discussed in this video. By increasing the amount of fiber in someone's diet, the overall health and biodiversity of the microbiota will increase. A more diverse microflora alters the production of the precursors of multiple neurotransmitters in the brain via the gut-brain axis and leads to a decrease in depressive symptoms. Therefore, I would recommend eating a higher amount of dietary fiber in order to decrease depressive symptoms.